Hi everyone. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much to Lucy for being here today. So I wanted to start doing a regular kind of feature where we are talking about what it's like to do a business and your life from soul, um, the ups and downs, the lessons, the learnings, the tips, the advice, all the things that perhaps people aren't 100% honest about, but I feel it's really important to be transparent. And I really wanted to speak to other soul-led entrepreneurs, because it's all very well me talking about this and kind of saying, it's better to do life and business this way. But actually, I thought it was really important to hear it from other people as well. And so that's part of what I wanted to do with this show. So I'm absolutely delighted. It's the first time today. We've had some tech issues, but it's fine. We're here. Lucy's here. So I just want to say thank you to you, Lucy, for being my first guest, which is very exciting.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so lovely, and I love what you're creating, and doing like work from a place of soul is just the best.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? And that's how, I mean, I was aware of you before, but our paths sort of crossed because we both are involved in Lucie, which is a very much a kind of soul legacy magazine as well, isn't it? So
yeah,
that's kind of how we've got to know one another. So I've reached out to you because I love what you're doing as well. So it would be great if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, maybe how you ended up like doing this and doing this way of the business as opposed to kind of traditional, I suppose.
okay, so I'm Lucy, and I run Kindred Calling, which is a branding and web design business for soul-led introverts. So introverts with like a passion and a purpose, and they're pushing through all their uncomforts because they've got something deep inside that they really want to share with the world. So yeah, I started my business about 4.5 years ago. It used to be called Ink Spike Studio, but at the beginning of this year, kind of March, or maybe no, earlier, later than that, May this year, I rebranded because I felt it had become slightly misaligned and it wasn't sitting right. So I rebranded to Kindred Calling, and it just feels so good. Doing things on impulse is definitely something that's always been part of my journey, and it's what's led me to finding my purpose. I tried lots of different avenues, lots of wrong turnings, but they all led me to here, and I'm just so grateful for that. So yeah,
It's really interesting to hear you say that as well, because I think there's a real thing out there, perhaps in a more traditional way of doing business. It's very much like, we're taught you must have a, I don't know, 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, or that there are so many of us out there that just doesn't feel right. And I'm exactly the same as you as well. It's like I could potentially have a 3-year plan, but I very much doubt it's going to be relevant, because when you feel like you're evolving and things are changing at such a pace, it's like what you might want to do today could be different from a week's time or a fortnight's time. And actually I think there's a real beauty and magic to following, as you said, those kind of impulses and gut instincts and seeing where they lead you. And actually that's fine as well, because perhaps it leads you somewhere that you couldn't sort of imagine with just your head. It opens you up to a bigger picture, doesn't it?
yeah, totally. And even like, obviously the first my first kind of like business ideas and stuff, they didn't really work, but it was because there was passion. The passion was missing, and the kind of like the bigger purpose was missing. But all of those, there were little nuggets of kind of like, the easiest part of creating those was coming up with the brand and doing all the branding and stuff. But that just kind of escaped me for like years and years and years. I had no inkling that kind of like I should even consider doing any kind of brand design, until someone just raised their hand and asked, can anyone help with the logo? And I was like, yeah, I'll help. And that kind of it just kind of opened up, and things just started to kind of fall into place. And it just, yeah. So all the wrong turnings were definitely had little kind of like elements to lead me to where I was meant to be going.
And it absolutely, there's no, quite often with business as well, there's no like linear path to it, is there? It's only when we look back we can kind of connect those dots. And I know it's like really frustrating, or it can be frustrating at the time, can't it, when you're just like, you just want to know or understand how it is. But you know, there's something about learning to trust the process, isn't there? And kind of like just think, right, just one step in front of the other. I mean, I'm all about sort of saying as well, literally just feel into what you want to do that day, because that will, you know, really show you where you should be going. And but it takes a lot of trust, because it almost goes against everything that we're taught that we should be doing, as in like, you know, go and do X, Y, Z and push and do this and hustle and do that. So there is a certain amount of kind of faith and almost rebellion, isn't there, about doing business that way?
Totally. And I mean, the amount of times that I had new ideas and I was thinking, this is it, this is going to work, this is going to be amazing. And then for whatever reason, it didn't. And then, okay, fine, I'll go and try something else. And like, you know, friends and family be like, oh, there she goes again, trying something new. But if I had never tried, then, you know, if I didn't follow the little impulses, then it wouldn't have led me here. So, you know, I think all of the kind of like little gut impulses and just kind of like ideas that we have, if they keep coming back, we need to listen to them, like really need to listen to them and just see what happens.
Definitely. I think there's something to be said as well, that, you know, that the only time that we see things as a failure perhaps is when we attach some kind of meaning or importance, or that something should be a particular way. And we all do it. We've all had, like you say, failed ideas or launches or whatever it happens to be. But actually, you know, that's because we had an expectation of the result that we wanted. But if we are willing to open ourselves up and see, okay, what is the message here, or the learning, or the lesson, or the magic, or the gift, or however you want to look at it, there generally is something. And as you say, it's all of these pieces that move you forward, but it's not always pretty. It can be,
yes,
upsetting. But that's why I really wanted to talk about stuff like that as well, because I think there's so much noise out there, isn't there, about people making huge amounts of money and, you know, incredible launches and all the rest of it. But actually, there's a load of us that are saying, and especially as you've said with introverts, that business isn't really like that. You know, it is moving forward, but perhaps it's not necessarily in the way that it might be we're told that it is. And it could be through, you know, making mistakes or things not working out. And
yes, yeah, I have kind of like a little thing that I've kind of my way of growth is by failing forward.
I love
so
that.
I'm just gonna, you know, keep trying, keep like making mistakes, learning from them, and just winding along on my path. And I trust it will work out. I trust that like I am going the right way. And yeah, I mean, it isn't easy at all. But I think as well, if you're doing something that you're so passionate about, that you know deep down this is your thing, this is like you're being called to do this, then you're like, it's easier to kind of like keep going through the shitty days and just, you know, push through. I think that's why my previous things didn't work, because I just didn't have the passion to push through. I think that is a key thing, especially definitely within soul-led businesses anyway. You have to have the passion and the purpose to get through the crappy days.
And how do you feel that like you came to that point of like finding that sort of soul and passion? Because again, that can be quite messy trying to get to that point as well, can't it? Like when you know there's something missing but you can't quite put your finger on it. Or
yeah, well, that was me before. So like after like I had my kids, you know, I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something. So like being a creative, I kind of, you know, started Etsy stores. And so I made jewelry, I made cards, you know, I had all these different things, but none of them had the key thing. And the key thing for me is being able to help people. So when my creativity combined with like helping people and serving others, that was like the magic combo that was like, okay, this is what I'm here for. This like lights up my soul. And and yeah, and to be able to help people is just it's just the best. It's just, yeah, I love it really. Yeah.
And have you got any advice for anyone about how you kind of find that passion, or find that those magic pieces?
I think it is just trying, listening to what you're being called to, see where it goes. If it doesn't work, that's okay. Just keep on listening, keep on searching, and keep on trying ideas. And eventually something will click and the right thing, I mean, we're all trying to kind of like, we're all on these paths and stuff, and we will pass so many different things and they're not going to be right for us. But to get to where we're meant to go, we need to go through them and follow that road. And so yeah, I think just following ideas just to see, and if they don't work, that's okay. Just keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, when from my point of view, because I had a business before and it was sort of quite successful on paper, but there was something missing there. And you go through all the things thinking, is it me? Because that's how business should be. So it's actually, perhaps I'm no good at it, or all of these kind of things. And then when I started, is when COVID happened, and then the business was wiped out. And then I had this opportunity to think, well, what do I really want to do now? I've got, I try and rebuild it as it was, or maybe this is my moment. And I just made a decision then. I was like, I'm going to start following my intuition more, start listening to what I want to do.
Yeah.
And even though it made no sense whatsoever at times, and it was really scary, I was like, I'm going to just keep doing it. I'm going to, you just sort of trust those little nudges that you've been saying. Yeah. And then 18 months later, it's led me somewhere else that I could never have possibly imagine, but, that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And so, like you're saying, further kind of the soul-led entrepreneurs, I think that's really key, isn't it? Because most of us can build a business from logic and hard work and pushing and all the rest of it, but it doesn't necessarily light you up and make you feel happy. And it's kind of looking at what you want, from a whole kind of holistic approach for your life and your business to be, isn't it? So
definitely. And I think if, like, for me, my thing is if it's not bringing me joy, then something's wrong. So if I'm doing something like marketing and stuff, if I'm trying and I'm pushing and pushing and things are just kind of like, they feel kind of like stagnant and just yuck, and I'm not actually making any traction, and I just need to stop doing that and just, okay, what brings me joy? So being creative, that is what kind of I love. And so when I just go back to that, things just start to kind of realign, and things just start to kind of like move and flow so much easier. I'm able to create content much easier because I'm in a better place.
Yeah, it's so valid, and that's so true as well. And obviously I've got a marketing background, so I see that a lot with clients as well. And it's this kind of feeling, a lot of the time, well, I've got to do that, and I've got to be doing this, and I've got to do that. And it's like, no, absolutely not. Because if you're coming at it from that kind of like push energy and you're not into it, then it's all about that energy. That's not going to be great. But it is important, like you say, it's our head can overrule our heart, can't it? And you think, well, but I should be doing these things as a business owner, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to keep checking in and, checking how it makes you feel and whether you're getting the results from it and all of these things. And if you're not being scared to switch things up a bit or do something a bit differently, because the amount of times perhaps, if you get yourself into that place of flow, as you've said, you open yourself up to other opportunities or ideas or people, or kind of serendipitous events seem to happen that you just wouldn't have been there, or you wouldn't have noticed, because you'd be so like slogging, thinking, I've got to write this content and I've got to get this out, churning it.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I mean, it is when it's weird as well, like how quickly when you change your kind of like energy, things do start to change. It's like, that is like the magical kind of like universe just coming into alignment and just be like, here you go, you're on the right path again, just kind of like, here's your but it's hard to stay there. you know, it's very easy, especially like with everything, you know, all the noise and everyone saying, you know, this is the way you do it, you should be marketing like this, you should be kind of like on this platforms or whatever. I liken it to kind of like we're on a path, and like we're going through a woods, and like, you know, there's people kind of, you know, with signposts on either side, and they're like this way, and like whatever, and you get off your path and you end up stuck in the wood, lost because you followed someone else's path. And, you know, if we stay on our own, then that is where we will lead to kind of like, you know, our kind of like magical place. But it's staying on that path and trying not to kind of get distracted by everyone else.
I love that analogy, and it's so true.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's one of those things as well. I think when you become really self-aware, it's absolutely fine to kind of look over there and think, oh, right, that's of interest to me because it really speaks to you, because it's right for you and it's aligned to you. That's totally different from your head going, oh, I'm missing out, I should be doing that. And like you said, just going off on wrong tangents, which we've all do and all done. And that's why the online space is full of, you know, courses and multi-million pounds of. So it's but it's true, it is hard to stay on there. So have you got any advice or things that you do that tries to keep you on that path and not kind of veering off, or if you know you can have like pulling yourself back? And
yeah, I think it is just being aware of it. And, you know, a few months ago I got like sucked in and I was completely lost, and kind of like, I was like, you know, what am I doing? I know what I need to be, like where I need to be going, like and so it's just being aware and kind of like just getting back on track and be kind of like, okay, like what am I being called to do? What, you know, what feels good for me to be doing right now? So yeah, I mean, I think it will always be a struggle. It will be always something that we have to kind of battle with. But I think as long as we kind of are aware of it and try and shift back into our kind of like flow sooner, then I think then things kind of like will stay a bit more aligned. But I think, you know, it's going to be a constant thing. We're always going to get sucked off somewhere, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back to what you were saying as well about using kind of joy as a barometer. Like if it feels good, but if you start feeling, a big one for me is then if I start pushing too much and I start working, it creeps in. It's like, oh, I'll just do a bit more and I'll work a bit longer hours, and then I start getting tired. And so, you know, I've burnt out in the past from doing that. So then I'll be mindful, I'll be like, oh, you're slipping again. But I notice it, like you were saying, I can catch myself and pull myself back. And I think it's also as well just to perhaps limit how much time you're spending on social media or who you're following. And, you know, all of the emails we get, it's really easy, isn't it? That kind of shiny object syndrome to.
Yes, totally. And I mean, I've started implementing like boundaries, and because boundaries has always been something that I've kind of struggled with as kind of like a service-based entrepreneur. Like keeping that kind of space just for me has often been quite hard, because obviously I just want to help my clients and stuff, but you know, having kind of like set times where I work for my clients and set times where, you know, okay, this is now time away from work, then that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I'm all about as well, and that whole kind of like holistic way of being. So because I wanted to speak to you about that as well. Like I really try, because I used to work ridiculous, you know, wake up in the morning and be straight on emails, social media, and then the day would just go right through, and I could be at the desk until well into the evening, and juggling it in amongst, you know, and young child, but half looking at the phone, all of those things. And it's just, I feel really ashamed in saying that, but I know that so many of us are like that. It kind of sucks you in. And so then I decided again, I didn't want my life to be like that. If that was success, then I didn't want it. So I've changed everything. And so I try now not to start work until like 10 or 11 o'clock, and make some real time in the morning to kind of ground myself and center myself and get myself into that space. So I feel that I'm more in charge of the day rather than the day being in charge of me. And so it is about having that balance, isn't it? It's not all about work, and it's difficult when you run your own business. Are there any kind of like things that you use, like strategies or self-care things that you try to do to kind of, you know, bring you into that place?
it's something that I kind of really struggle with, and something I'm trying to kind of like implement more. Actually, I was speaking to my coach this week, and I'm going to bring in Fridays are going to be my kind of like just day for creating, just being creative and just kind of like playing as like, and just like do some painting or drawing, but just from a place of like, you know, discovery and just to see what happens. So I think creative, like as a creative, like having that kind of just like free play is going to be, I'm really excited about it. I'm spending this afternoon just kind of like just going to go and just see what happens. So I'm going to look forward to that.
That sounds beautiful. And it's such a funny thing, isn't it? Because, you know, when we start our own businesses, this is exactly what we want to do, because we want to have the freedom to do that. Yet so many of us don't. We become like the worst boss in the world and don't give ourselves any time off.
I know.
It's difficult when you're creative as well and you're doing stuff like for your work creatively, then you almost don't, you know, do it as a kind of the hobby or for the enjoyment and things that you did. But I think it's so important to do that because it's something for you to look forward to, but also it is about getting that balance, that it's like life isn't all about working, it's about, you know, enjoying the journey, isn't it? And actually I bet you'll find the more you do that, you'll get those creative ideas and
exactly like just spend some time, just enjoy without thinking about kind of like anything. It doesn't have to be business related, you know, it's just doing it for a sheer just place of just to see what happens. But yeah, I will get inspired moments and be like, oh, you know, this could be done in this way or whatever. Or it doesn't have to be. There is no kind of like agenda to it. It is just to do it and see what happens.
That's good. And I think it's important, isn't it, as sort of entrepreneurs, that we give ourselves the permission to be able to do that as well and to take that time off if we need it, because we know that it might feel quite luxurious at the time, like I should be doing client work or checking my emails, whatever, but the benefits of taking that time out are huge. But it's so indoctrinated in us, isn't it, that, you know, we don't work like that. But I think that's all about being soul-led as well, isn't it, as opposed to kind of traditional.
That's so true, because I was thinking, you know, because it's something that I've wanted to do for kind of, you know, at least the past 6 months, but I've not implemented it. And so to actually kind of be like, okay, right, this is going to be a set in stone thing. I am going to do this, and it's going to be part of, you know, my business week, because I need that time just to kind of like have the kind of like free space to kind of be creative. And so having that downtime, but having it and acknowledging that it will actually benefit my business to have that.
Definitely. I find it as well, like with, you know, the kind of the work that I do as well, it's almost a bit like practicing what I preach as well. Like if you're helping other soul-led entrepreneurs and we're all kind of struggling with the same things, it's almost like you kind of need to embody it yourselves as well, don't you?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of go back to what you were saying, obviously, about the work that you do. It would just be lovely to hear a little bit more about, you know, because I know you do that sort of soul-aligned branding and obviously the web design and everything. And I love the fact about that, like for introverts as well, that really appeals to me because I'm very much an introvert at heart as well. But I guess understanding like how your work is perhaps slightly different to going to a more, you know, traditional branding person or something like that. Obviously, you've got that insight because you do it yourself. But if there is anything else you wanted to share about that.
Yeah. So I work like on kind of like an intuitive kind of like in very intuitive like way with my clients. We're kind of like, it's a one-on-one journey that we go on together. A previous client, she said that I'm a relationship-based designer because it's very collaborative. I don't just kind of like, you know, present logos that I think are gonna work, but there's got to be some depth to the design, to the brand identity, for them to have, like, as solo entrepreneurs, there needs to be like part of you kind of like weaved into it. So we start with kind of like getting to know the deeper kind of why and, you know, your values, and how your values and your kind of personality and different way of doing things appeal to your soul clients. And then we take that and create a brand design that will appeal to your soul clients, but also that you have the deep connection to. And yeah, it's a very lovely process. It's you know, and it is definitely a journey, because there's a lot of discovery for the clients as well, like gaining a lot more clarity on their business at the start, and just to see the potential for where they could take their brand. So then we kind of, if they know, you know, if they have a vision for the possibilities of where they would like to go in the future, then we can create something that will help them get there. But yeah, it's honestly, it's like an honor to be involved in such an important part of like a business, you know. I mean, and to be trusted with that, it's something that, you know, I find incredibly honored to be part of, definitely.
Oh, I love that. And it is absolutely, it's so important, isn't it? You know, you're talking about the kind of the vision and the values and stuff, because as you said, as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, our businesses, they're so entwined with us, aren't they? Especially if they're kind of soul led as well. It's probably like an energetic extension. So you really feel like you're putting yourself out there. So to get that, I know it just makes you feel more confident, and the fact that you can really clearly communicate what you do, and that it really kind of connects with your soul clients as well. It is so important. And from a marketing perspective, I'm all about that as well. It's exactly the work that I take people through, because it just becomes so much easier on all levels, doesn't it? And I think you do get that real sense of connection to what you're doing, and vice versa, and then it can really be felt as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it helps your audience to identify like if you're a good fit for them, because obviously, you know, we don't want to kind of like, you know, just be like something that everyone's kind of, you know, to show up differently and as our personality filled way, and the way we present ourselves, we're not going to appeal to everyone, and that's a good thing. So it's being open to kind of like doing things a little bit differently, and showcasing that and sharing that, and being, you know, proud, and, you know, waving your freak flag, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is, there's so much out there again, and for anybody that perhaps has come from like corporate backgrounds and stuff as well, there's a lot of people that will put on a persona, won't they, about, you know, I feel like I should put on this sort of front. And I know I did it myself in the old business, and it was very much like, well, I need to appeal to these clients, so I need to look like this, or I need to look professional, or, but it's like exhausting, because then you're constantly trying to live up to some kind of persona that perhaps isn't you at all. And so that's, you know, completely the difference with being soul aligned. And it is such a beautiful process. It sounds lovely. So Lucie, if anybody wanted to get in contact with you about your work, where can they find you?
You can find me at kindredcalling.com, or on Instagram at kindred_calling. Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you so much. It's been really gorgeous to talk to you. I knew that it would. We have so many parallels sort of in the work that we do, and it's just been really beautiful to kind of share your knowledge and wisdom with people as well, and your insights as to what it's like. I guess the last thing I would just say, do you feel there's anything that you kind of like, lessons that you've learned along the way, and anything that you would like to share as a tip or advice for people that are watching?
Yeah, just trust your gut. You know, it's there. If something feels like a no, listen to the no, because when I've gone against it, it's always, you know, I kind of like realize later, it's like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, I should have listened. But yeah, listen to it, because, you know, it will guide us. So yeah,
Couldn't agree more. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Lucie. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.